You're tuned in to the Data Masters podcast. In each episode, we dissect the complexities of data management and discuss the data strategies that fuel innovation, growth, and efficiency. We speak with industry leaders who share how their modern approaches to data management help their organizations succeed. Let's dive straight into today's episode with Anthony Dayton.
Welcome back to Data Masters. Today, we're joined by a leader who views the evolution of data and AI not just as a technical shift, but as a professional journey. Dr. Elena Alikhachkina has been a global leader of data and analytics across a number of large global organizations across a wide variety of industries, including TE Connectivity, Roche, Danone, J&J, just to mention a few. But Elena is not just an executive. She's also a longtime friend and a mentor to the industry through her career newsletter, Recoded Career, which I would encourage everyone to go check out on LinkedIn. In the newsletter, she challenges us to stop thinking of data as the new oil and start thinking about it as a living business process. She has a PhD in economics and a master's in software engineering, and she's really the perfect guide to help us think about our legacy mindsets and prepare for a new agentic AI future. So, Elena, welcome back as one of our first repeat guests on Data Masters. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Anthony. I'm always happy to be back.
So maybe let's start with the career newsletter, because that's something very new since we last talked. And maybe share a little bit about your vision for the newsletter, what you were thinking about. And I mean, there's just so much rich content on there. I would encourage people, maybe a few things that you think have resonated effectively.
Yes, thank you for mentioning it. So with development of AI, and me have been leading really large organizations, sometimes over the thousands of people organizations. I started realizing more and more that people I have been leading for ages actually in the biggest danger of AI. So people who work in data analytics and AI, their job is changing. So we talk about the business job is changing, but actually see that the job is changing much quicker for technical people. And so AI can write the code. So like data scientist profession is not as hot as it used to be, because remember, we have been saying it's the sexiest profession, right? So not anymore. So AI can also get insights much quicker than any analyst can get, right? So I started this newsletter to help people who have been always a part of my teams. I have been leading them and coaching for ages to think differently about next steps, right? And next steps actually coming from looking into soft skills, looking into business skills, and becoming more like a product owners, basically the product career, right? So we all know in the industry of Google, like in the Google world, in Amazon world, Meta world, right? So the product teams play a critical role. But if you look at traditional enterprises, healthcare industry, consumer goods, they never put like a product skill to be the skill. And now with AI, it's absolutely needed, right? So this is why I started this newsletter, to give people who I have been leading my entire career to think about the future.
So the idea here is to not think about the data analyst job as primarily generating code, but being that product manager, for lack of a better term, or product leader. But share a little bit about your view of what it means to be a product leader. I mean, when I think about, and you use the analogy of Google or Meta, the classic product leadership role is about understanding your user requirements, translating that into language that an engineer can understand. And I think also in many cases, translating the product functionality that an engineering team builds into language that a prospect or a customer can understand. I think that makes sense to people, but how does it make sense in the context of a data career?
So this is absolutely exactly the same, right? Because with AI, data is becoming at the center of every application, right? So exactly as you described, the user centricity is the key. So understanding the business cycle, understanding how this data, how AI, how technology are the part of the business cycle, right? So ability to properly ask questions, because like like in reality, what I'm seeing, like traditional business analysts are not deeply asking questions, right? So traditional business analyst is saying like, oh, you need a dashboard. Okay, great. I'm going to create the dashboard for you, right? But you need to go deeply into like what problem you're trying to solve, right? So, I mean, I'll give you kind of the contrast, like what is happening now and what the product manager is going to do, right? So not like a long time ago, we have been running the workshop, right? And during the workshop, our business analysts have been, pushing business to identify the problem. So the problem came, we need to decrease the number of suppliers, right? So, and traditional analyst is going to say, okay, great, decrease number of suppliers. I'm going to go and build the model, and, and you're going to be able to decrease, right? If you're the product owner, you're not going to stop on this, right? So you're going to actually ask additional questions. Imagine that we decrease the number. Here's the 10 suppliers you're going to remove from the list. How it's going to work, right? So this is where the real question is going to come. Because when we asked this question during the workshop, business said, oh, wait a second, no, I cannot remove the suppliers because they are critical. Okay, so then it does mean, why are we asking to build a model in the first place, right? So the product mindset is to go deeper into real problem, not stopping into kind of, here is a solution. Okay, how it's going to work? How you're going to make decision? Is it really going to be adopted, and how it's going to be adopted, and by whom? Who is going to make this type of decisions, right? So in reality, it's such a rare skill set, right? So and this is the person, I'm saying this because I have been leading these teams for ages, right? People usually excited to get their hands dirty and start doing the technical work, right? But the skill set which is needed is creating, which I call like AI loops, right? So AI loops is basically a continuation of learning, continuation of business processes, the model getting the value, right? So these are the skills which I see quite of missing. And they are missing on both sides, right? So the difference between Amazon and the traditional enterprise, let's say healthcare company, right? Because Amazon is building products for external customers. In traditional enterprises, there are products, data products. I mean, and data products, I'm calling not just data, but it's like AI is also the data product, right? So they build it for internal customers, right? So it's really different matrix relationships, right? So it's the product management skills, but you do have your internal customers.
So one of the techniques that I saw you writing about that I really loved is this idea of walking the floor, like being very present in the physical space of the customer, to use your language. We've experienced this even at Tamer with a retail customer of ours. We literally had our product managers go and spend time in the retail location, watching how store associates interact with customers, and then understanding why it was so valuable to that retailer to create a 360 view of the customer and understand the household relationships that a store associate needed in order to provide a great experience for that customer as they came into the store. And I think this is a good example of exactly what you're talking about. So, but to bring that back to you for a second, it's your view is that a data analyst who views their job as primarily sitting behind a computer writing code is not going to be successful in a Gen AI world, but somebody who's present in the day-to-day operations more likely to be successful. Is that fair?
Yes. So basically, you're not going to be successful by building your technical skills. You're going to be successful by your ability to connect technologies with the business processes and being able actually to create, which I call, again, this like AI loops, basically, right? So an AI loop, just to clarify, it has a data component, has a learning system component, user experience component, right, and knowledge building, right? So if there is no such loop, somebody needs to be an architect of this loop, right? So and I do see this the role as a product manager role, right? So Anthony, I'm super happy to hear that you actually sending your teams to do these observations, because this is so powerful. This is so powerful, right? So I mean, I had situations when data scientists have been showing me proudly like a predictive maintenance model at the factory, and never ever visited the factory, right? So I mean, not surprised that this model didn't work in real life, right? So and it's, I mean, it sounds like funny, but when we come, like, so for example, at the like CDO IQ conference in Boston, so this gets discussed between everybody that in reality, people far away from business processes, people like in data analytics are not fully embedded. So, so I'm thinking the model and roles, because the product management role is actually embedded directly into the business, right? So I do see quite of big shift is going to happen, right? So these are people going to be actually sitting on the business side, and maybe only infrastructure is going to be managed by like CIO, CDO, whatever, right? But the real solutions, like a data analytics solutions, they will be sitting with the business because they are the business.
Right. Actually, this is a really good segue or point. There's this, I hear this a lot in software companies where the technical leadership in the organization will say, I need to understand, what does the business say? Or we need to check in with the business. And I always remind them, like, you're the business. Right? You're in the business of writing software. There is no them. Like, you are them. They are you. There's no this distinction between the technical people who write code or analyze data and some other entity within that company that is the business. Like, no, if you're a manufacturing company and there's a factory floor, like, that's your factory floor, to use your example. Or in my example, if our customer is a retail organization and we're providing software to that retail organization, that's the business. The business is delivering the software. So there is no the business like that. And this sense of us and them within any organization, I think, is quite corrosive. But there's a extending that for a minute. You also have, I think, what is a really important insight about the role of data in that conversation. Historically, we've treated data like a resource, something that means to be extracted or mined or refined. The common analogy, which admittedly you have been very vocal against, is this idea of data as oil. Data is the oil of our time. And I will also, for the record, admit to having used that metaphor. But so, what's wrong with that metaphor, and how do you see it differently?
Yes, definitely. I remember we had a conversation about this. Because I mean, it's kind of attractive to say, oh, data is a new oil, right? And I understand why people say this, because they basically trying to compare this to gold, or compare to like, oh, this is expensive, we have to take care, right? So why I don't like this analogy with the oil, it's because we're burning data, right? So, and what is important in AI, and in my upcoming book, I actually have a full chapter where I explain about how AI is changing the business model. So AI is creating like a learning loops in a business, right? So data is a number one part of your successful AI loop, right? So basically, you have to have a new data, which I call the learning data, right? which I think actually the tamer solution is a perfect analogy to learning data, because you combine in different parts, but you constantly learn, right? So comparing to the oil, you just take a copy and burn it, take a copy and burn it. This is what we have been doing for ages, right? Take a copy, create a dashboard, take a copy, create a the PowerPoint presentation, or like a model, right? So many AI pilots, which companies are doing right now, are not actually creating the loop, right? Because they take the data, copy, make it really perfect, great copy, put into the model, get the result. But the purpose of AI is to learn, right? So, you need to constantly feed more data, constantly create, this type of loop, right? So the terminology I love to use is learning data. So this is what we need for the future. The data which is constantly learned from interactions, from customer interactions, from usage by people, from different types of data actually coming more and more into system.
So if so your criticism of the oil analogy is that it's a one-way direction.
Yes.
You use your framing, you take the oil, you burn it. And I very much agree with that, because I think if you look inside many enterprises today, it's like the floor is littered with unused dashboards. It's
Yeah.
but maybe the analogy is more like a lithium ion battery, which is you charge it up and then you discharge it, you use it. And in that sense, your AI learning loops are really about sort of charge the battery,
Yeah.
discharge the battery, charge the battery, discharge, bring in insights, push those insights out. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's absolutely fair. So let's give actually example like Gen AI type, right? So many companies have a lot of documents, right? So could be legal documents, could be research documents, could be engineering documents, right? So companies started creating repositories, which Gen AI can mine and get a different type of insights from this type of repositories, right? But there is no learning data here, because what is happening is people work in the old way, right? So now I am, let's say, the researcher who is creating maybe like a formula in pharmaceutical company. So I can type in this tool, I can find what was done before, what other people did, right? So, but the user experience is kind of stopped because people take this and put back into Excel spreadsheet. So they do not put back the knowledge they are learned personally, they are created back to the system, right? So, to close the loop, we need to put the user experience, the user interactions, and the data back to the system, right? So again, the pilots are great. They might create the productivity, but they are not creating the true acceleration loop.
Yeah.
And I'm not the first one to talk about the acceleration loops, because acceleration loops have been discussed back in like 1970s, right? So it's like how we create the business models when we have a continuous learning system, right? So now since we have AI, it's becoming a reality. We can create learning enterprises.
Yeah, and as I very much agree, and the pace and quantity that you can process is dramatically higher. So
Absolutely.
in your example of the documents, if a manufacturing organization had specifications on hundreds of thousands of variations on a set of products, the idea that a single human being could reasonably read all of that, understand it, digest it, produce some sort of insight and output, that's possible, but that's a multi-month effort at best.
Yep.
And now that's something that could be reasonably done in a few minutes or hours. And so it's not the ability to do it, it's the cycle time that's changed.
Yes, absolutely. Cycle time has changed, right? So we don't have, going back to data, we don't have time anymore to create like a rule-based type of systems, right? So we need to create learning systems. Yeah.
Yeah, which, I mean, in some sense, we have perfect analogies for this, which is people. Like you
Exactly.
could hire tens of thousands of people to read, summarize,
Yeah.
gain insights, et cetera. But that would obviously not be cost effective. So the real opportunity is to think about how to change the economics of this, because now you can have the speed and cycle time you want, but at a reasonable cost.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's exactly, it's like traditional business model. You grow by adding more resources. So AI business model, you grow by accelerating your AI loops.
So we've talked a little bit about maybe the junior people who are using data in their day-to-day world, the middle management who's thinking about how to create these AI loops and improve cycle times. But the common refrain I hear from boards of directors and very senior leadership is maybe something closer to fear and uncertainty. This idea that we know AI is coming, we think it's important, we're not quite sure what to do about it. And the best in class seems to be just telling everyone AI is here and they should install it or something, and that's it. And then hoping something good happens, which is hope is not a great strategy. I guess the good news is you're writing a whole book on this. So share what you're writing, because I think it's totally fascinating, and without ruining the surprise, maybe share some insights you gained out of writing on the topic.
Yes, so absolutely. So early in 2025, I joined National Association of Corporate Directors, and I'm completing my certification as a board director with this association right now. So what I noticed by attending corporate director sessions, that there is such a big confusion in boardrooms. So this National Association actually doing quite a good work. They do quite a webinars, they invite different parties, right? But what I found that it's like so complicated. It's not really translated into responsibilities of the board directors. So I took a chance, being operating executive for so many years, to translate it, right? But I did not do this alone. So I do have actually co-authors for this book. So one co-author, she's a professor, is in NYU, and the second is my former boss, actually, from Johnson & Johnson, right? And plus we interviewed a lot of people. We interviewed over 150 people across North America and across Europe. People who are board directors, people also who are operating executive and technology and data. So this is how this book came in place, right? So I think the key aspects in this book, maybe like what is basically the know-how, I would say, what is really different. Because, I mean, first of all, not so many books for the boards right now, right?
That's true.
And the books which are coming, they usually explain the technological side, right? So in my book, I'm explaining, first of all, is how the business is changing, right? So this is where I'm going more into different business loops and explaining what is changing in terms of the governance, because, the purpose of the board is provide the business governance, right? So, and translating this into traditional responsibilities of the corporate board directors, right? So it's almost like analogy, how the board have been doing financial duties, or have been doing, for example, like information security, right? And comparing what needs to be done for AI. So also the second, I'm putting quite a lot of effort in this book explaining that the governance of AI board is starting from data. So data governance have to become the board responsibility, and I'm explaining why it is. So I'm introducing the score, which actually my proprietary score, and I'm gonna have a digital diagnostic coming with the score. It's a data readiness score. It's like, so boards, the same way as they measure right now information security. So at every board meeting, they actually talk about like, what is my info security score? And it's widely available in industry. We need to start measuring is what is my data readiness score, what risks I have with environments and the data which I feed in different systems, right? And the third is related to about the people development part, right? So what type of skills we have to develop in people. So this is how this book is different from others, because others are mostly focused on technological side and explaining technology. So I think we have enough books explaining
Yeah.
technology.
Well, and again, it
Yeah.
connects nicely to what you were saying before, which is as a even as a junior practitioner, as a data analyst, it's not about the ability to write code.
Yeah.
As a middle manager, it's not about the ability to just impose AI strategies, but really starting to understand the underlying business process, the AI loops that you can create, and now you're translating that into a language and a set of strategies that a board can understand, which I think is extraordinarily valuable.
Yeah, and there are so many changes, because I would say, Anthony, is so there are some questions in this book. I had so many conversations when we have been interviewing people for the book, right? So for example, I'm talking to the sales leader, somebody who is leading like really big national sales organization, over 100 people, right? And he's super excited to get agents working for him, to get agentic AI. And I'm asking the question is like, how are you going to manage performance? And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, this is your employee, right? So like now you have 100 people. In the future, you're going to have maybe 10 people, and you're going to have 100 digital employees, and they're going to be performing on your behalf. I mean, who is going to be accountable if something goes wrong, right? And you can see that this person did not ask this question, because the assumption was everything technology is a CIO accountability.
Right. Someone
Like
else's problem.
CIO is going to be managing agents for me. No, no, no. Sorry. You're going to be managing agents, because these are your digital employees, right? So basically, these are type of new skills uh, everybody, everybody need, right?
Yeah.
So another example, which I think this week in my newsletter, I actually talked about the trust, right? So like, what is the number one dysfunction of the team? Trust. I mean, everybody gonna say it, because we all read Patrick Lencioni book, right? But is it the same trust?
Yeah. What
No.
does
I
trust
mean,
mean? Yeah.
yeah,
In the context of
trust is
AI.
now, data is a part of the trust. People don't trust data, don't make decisions, don't take actions, right? So data technology is a part of the trust. So did we ever think about this? No, never. Right. So even like development of the people is now becoming really different.
Right. And people use this language uh, a lot when they're using, for example, coding agents. I
Yeah.
don't trust what it did. I have to go back and verify. I
Yeah.
I need to write test plans and
Yeah.
use that as a. I mean, really, if you think about in software engineering, a test plan is just a way of verifying that changes have not broken downstream functions, et cetera. So, yeah, no, 100%. So this idea of trust is different. The kind of personal trust you create with people is different, perhaps. Although, frankly, people use the same language in the context of AI. They
Yeah.
anthropomorphize it quite a lot. So let's end by casting our eyes forward into the future. I'm going to put you on the spot as
Sure.
a noted expert, an author, and someone who's thinking deeply about the stuff. I'm going to ask you to put your reputation on the line and make some predictions for 2026. I think it's fair that we could characterize this last year, this is my opinion, as a kind of pilot phase of AI. I think a lot of organizations have, in your using your framing, they've given people the technology without any real sense of what they're going to do with it, with the kind of hope that, well, hopefully someone will do something good. You know,
Yeah.
so if 2025 was the AI pilot, what does 2026 hold for us as it relates to data analytics, AI, corporate governance, et cetera? To make some bold predictions.
Yes, absolutely. So I would make maybe prediction, but also maybe some recommendation to people how I would approach it, right? So first of all, I hope in 26 we're gonna stop thinking about AI as a chat GPT on my phone. This is the majority of people think about AI, right? So, and really start understanding that AI is way, way bigger than having the GPT on your phone. I really hope that 2025 companies are going to start paying more attention into AI they already have embedded in systems, like so SAP, Salesforce. I mean, major applications, they already have so much AI. Go and use it. It doesn't even cost you money. You don't even need to move the data, right? So it's already sitting in systems and go it. So this could be the first step, to maximizing, right? So we're going to see the growth of the agents. I mean, this is the reality. So many development companies, I'm in conversations, they have enormous demand for coming for agentic AI, right? So we still have a barriers, and we're probably going to continue having barriers in information security because it's not well developed enough to get into like truly AI application and agentic applications, right? So I hope we're gonna see some better solutions coming in information security and compliance space, because these are the areas which actually gonna slow down AI, right? I think it's also gonna become a year of the turning point to more attention to data, right? Because we were hoping that 25 is going to be this year. It's kind of yes and not, right? But I already see kind of signs in the market that data is becoming like
Maybe 2025 was the year people realized they had a problem. And hopefully
exactly.
2026
Yeah.
is the year they start putting in place some solutions.
I think 26, 27, people gonna start, thinking about solutions, right? So I also hope that 26 people are gonna realize that giving people a technical training is not gonna be good enough, right? And I can definitely confirm this from my recent presentation and manufacturing, like North America, like Manufacturing Leadership Council, because I was talking about the digital leadership, and entire population of manufacturing leaders, they said, yeah, we don't need to teach more tools. We need to
Right.
teach people how to think, right? So I think this is becoming a reality. Universities, I think it would be interesting to see how universities are going to start changing in 2026, because it is a problem, right? So I mean, students cannot find a job. Universities cannot provide the proper education. People almost have to get a double degree, right? So it's not good enough to be technical. You need to have a business degree. It's not good enough to be business. You have to understand technology, right? So I think these are type of changes we're going to start seeing coming.
Well, I think those are very prescient. They'll be very, my hope and goal is that we can hop on a similar podcast in 6 months and check in to see how directionally correct we are.
Yeah,
But
no,
I think,
absolutely. Let's do it. And I just want maybe to finish and say this loudly. So people talk about the eye bubble. I don't see the bubble. I actually see that we underestimate an opportunity. And I'm saying this being through early social and digital kind of smartphone type of bubble, right? So we might have a bubble when we fund a lot of companies who maybe not have enough experience in understanding real business processes. So in this side, maybe there is a little bit startup bubble when companies get funds, but they not really don't see how they're going to be embedded into future enterprises, right? But in general, AI is not bubble. It's going to continue developing. And it's not just my words. So I was listening JP Morgan presentation. So they kind of agreed with me that there is no such thing as AI bubble.
yeah, I actually read an interesting analysis that sort of showed past bubbles, the dot-com bubble, the past technology bubbles, and they went back and looked at what people were predicting at the beginning of the growth phase of, say, for example, e-commerce. And in all cases, they underestimated the investment and impact
Yep.
that this supposed bubble had, even if there can be these correction moments with a slightly longer arc of history. The sense was that in general, people underestimate these things. And so in that context, I think you're probably right. Like we've underestimated the degree to which this technology will impact lives and, hopefully for the better, and mostly it seems for the better. But they'll underestimate as opposed to overestimate.
Yep. Yeah, no, 100% agree. Again, like learnings we got from smartphones, from when social came in place, right? So we definitely underestimated, right? And yeah, it became, we're gonna see different type of enterprises. We're gonna see different type of companies. The same as during the first wave. This is where Uber was born. Like completely different, completely different business models came in place, right? Amazon grew so much. These are all the kind of the first wave of digital transformation, right? So now, yeah, it's becoming reality. The only side what they're gonna see kind of gonna slow us down is definitely infosecurity and compliance. So these are two sides. I would recommend companies to start pay attention more, because it doesn't matter how you're going to scale if you're not going to be able to report back how your model is working, which is requirement now in the European Union, and it's also requirement by different regulators in US. Yeah, you're going to slow you down. So pay attention to infosecurity and compliance.
Excellent. Good advice. Elena, always a pleasure. Thank you for coming back, and let us put on the calendar a 6-month check-in to see how your predictions are doing.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Always happy to connect.
Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of the Data Masters podcast. You'll find links in the show notes to any resources mentioned on today's show. And if you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe so you never miss an episode.